Hi, this is Bonnie, and if you remember, I showed you how to add a simple moon to any type of paper other than something that is really busy. So this would work good for any of your stamping that you'd like to do, or just even adding a sentiment. But today, this is what I'm going to show you we're going to be working on. It works really well. This paper happens to be from Fairy Hugs. It is called PetalShimmer, and again, it does not come with a moon. It's just got this beautiful background. And some of the other things I'm going to be using are from the newest release, and that is Peony. Kind of hard to see her in here, but you can see her right there. And she likes to sit on things. And I'm also going to be using the music tree. And if you take a close look at this, it has all the bars in between the branches, and it's got all the different kinds of notes on there. This tree can be used in different ways other than just as itself. People also just use the top of it for decoration on their cards. I'm also going to be using one of my favorite sentiments, and this one's called Fairy Whispers, and it has 7, I believe that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sentiments in it, and they're all individual. So the other thing I'm going to be using is one of the newer stencils from Fairy Hugs, and this one's called, I think, Magical Dots. And I'm also going to be using chipped sapphire and some other things along the way, and I'll let you know. So you can see right here, I'm going to be using some pencils later. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up so we can do some stamping. Okay, as you know, I always audition my stamps, and because I've already made this card, I pretty much know where I want it. Nothing is ever exactly the same, even the second time around, but it just gives me an idea of where I want to make the placement. And I also then make sure that there's room here to put Peony down here below. So that's pretty much how that's going to go. And I'm going to be using VersaFine Clear Nocturne. And this card is basically pretty straightforward, pretty simple in the design. It, like anything, it takes a little bit of time, but it's not too bad. So this is our main focal point, which is the tree. And it's not a solid stamp, but there's a lot of inking, so you want to make sure that you get a good stamp. And I don't want it moving. That really looks pretty good, but there's some spots right there, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more washi tape to the top just to secure that down. And I'm going to add some more ink. You can see a little bit of faded right there. It could very well be part of my ink pad that needs a little bit more ink. I'm not sure. But I always do my stamping now in the stamping platform, unless it's just a little stamp. Just because I always used to have a problem with stamping and getting a nice full inked image before the platform. So now I'm good. This is exactly what I want. And so now I can go ahead and place Peony where I want her, which is going to be about right there. And Peony is a stamp that would be great if you could stamp her one time as opposed to 2 times, because the lines, because she's smaller, the lines are a little bit more detailed, and so it's kind of nice not to put as much ink on her. Knowing that you've got a good juicy ink pad the first time works better than stamping her 2 times. But I have stamped her 2 times many times and still get a good impression. Again, you have to wait that little bit of time to make sure it absorbs into the paper. Okay, let's check it out. She's still clinging. I like it better when she just kind of releases. Yeah, that looks really good, and I want you to see what I mean about the detail. She's got some really, really beautiful detail. Okay, so we've got our two main images stamped. Now we're going to go ahead and do our sentiment. And again, I still audition even all my sentiments. I'm going to move that corner piece a little bit. And I want this one to kind of like go underneath her a little bit. And then these are really nice because they're just one strip. So technically you can even arch these when you put them, if you know, wherever you put them, if you put them on your acrylic block or your platform. That's what I like about the one line or the single, anything single skinny stamps. You can form them slightly. Okay. And we'll go ahead and stamp that. Again, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on anything that is, I want to say, thin in terms of the lines, because they will get thick and not be as clear to read. So not a whole lot of inking on that one. And so we've got all of our items stamped. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is adding a little bit of a hill, and I'm going to be doing some stenciling. Okay, so for the hill, because I wanted it to be a little bit more precise, I did not use a torn piece of paper. I am just using a pencil to give me the highlight I need, and I'm going to show you on my original. All I did was just draw that line with my pencil lightly, just so that it looks like I wanted it to be more precise, and by doing the torn paper, it's never really exactly, I mean, you use it the way it is, but I wanted this one to be more precise and actually work for her like she's really sitting on a hillside. So it's all lined up, and then I just color around. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer and you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so again, I'm just coloring in just a little bit, not heavy, not hard. Like I'm using the side of my pencil so that it's not as sharp of a line, just the side. And that kind of gives me my line. And then I picked out another color that was a little bit, I'm going with colors that are in the background, so they blend in. So whatever you use, whatever paper you would use pencils or colors, whatever you decide to use to go with what your background is. And this time I am using, this one's called Pale Vermilion. The other one that I used was called Poppy Red. And both of those work really well with this PetalShimmer's sheet of paper. And like I said, it's just really lightly, and that kind of like gives you your look of your hill, and you can see that. So it's very subtle. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to lift this back up, and we are going to be doing some stenciling. And I am going to be using, like I said, the Fairy Hugs New stencil, and as you can see, there's all different size dots in there, which is perfect for what I want to do. On my original, I put just a little bit here and a little bit here, and like I said, every time I do it, it's going to be a little bit different. So I just wanted a little bit more interest to the background, and I am just going to be using chipped sapphire, and I'm just picking out a little bit of these circles. trying not to move it too much. This paper has a little bit of a sheen to it, and I never have a problem other than when I do a little bit of stenciling because it wants to move, so you want to make sure you have your space a little bit more secured. I'm just holding it right now, and knowing that it can move, I'm holding it tight. So that's the look I wanted for there, and then I'm using the exact same spot down below, just turning it to the side, and I'm just going to put a little bit right here. Very simple. There we go. So that is the stenciling. The next part, the next part's going to be coloring in some of the other places on here that I like to do. So if you're happy with the way that looks as it is, you can be done. The other thing I would suggest is using a sparkle gel pen, but I usually do that at the end so I don't put my hand in it. So if you want to stick around to see that part, or fast forward, whatever you'd like to do. So for the rest of this, I'll show you some of the details. I am going to be coloring in the wings. You can see how I highlighted with the gold gel pen, sparkly gel pen, and I also colored in some of or all of the bars inside of the tree. And you don't have to watch me do all of that, but I'll show you some of it so you get an idea of how I did that. First thing I'm going to do though is a little bit on on Peony. Okay, so we're a little bit closer so you can see. I used the darkest one first that's closer to her, and this one happens to be pomegranate. And I'm just going to do a little bit of, it's kind of like you think of shadows and where a shadow would be. And closer to her, there would be a shadow. So, and a little bit maybe at the bottom. So that would be what I would do for that. Now in terms of her bodice, I like to color those in sometimes. You can hardly see it on here. But I like to color that in too if I can. So I'll go ahead and do that at the right time. It's hard to see, but it is on there. So the next thing I'm going to do is the next color up, which would be the next darker color. That's Poppy Red again, which is what I used down below. And I'm just going to extend a little bit of those wings in that color. And I'm actually going to add some color to the skirt down below. I might have to add that color up above, but maybe show it better, maybe not. Okay. Okay, so we've got all that color in. And then the next thing is the lightest color I'm going to use is called Yellow Ochre. And that's just going to be used at the very tips of the wings. And for the most part, the tips of the wings are going to have some sparkly gel pen. So there we go for her. Oh, I forgot the other wing. Of course I did. There's a little wing over here to the side. I'm going to have to turn it just so that I can see it better. And again, same concept, just adding the darkest color at the bottom and then gradually getting lighter as you go up to the tip. Now, I'm using the same concept when I'm coloring in the bars of the tree. So I'm starting out with the darkest color, and I just go through and figure out, okay, it's kind of like all over the place if you pay attention in terms of where the dark and the light would be. So I'm considering what would be the darkest part, like wouldn't be reaching particularly the sun, even though the moon is right there. I should say the light of the moon, not the sun. But I'm going, you can do it whatever way you want. Like the moon is right there, so the dark part should be behind it. So it's kind of hard because, like I said, this thing is all swirled all over, so just make up your mind where you want to go. On mine, I just went underneath. That's just what I did for the most part. And if you really question it, you can always check out the photo that I have, not so much in the video. I also have it on my blog. I'll always have whatever I do on YouTube on my blog. And my blog happens to be Grandma Bonnie's Place. Kind of easy to remember. If you type in Grandma Bonnie's Place, it should always come up. But I'll put the link down below, just in case you want to see it up close. Okay. So again, that's what you do. Next color up would be the Poppy Red. And the Poppy Red has a little bit of a orange to it, tint. Coloring in the music bars, that's what you call them, gives the tree a little bit more dimension. And actually, this is what takes the longest to make the card if you decide to color it in. Okay, and then the next color I'm going to use for this is the ochre, the yellow ochre. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And that just finishes off the entire bar. And as you could tell, it's not particularly a smooth blended look. It can be if you want to take your time and make it more blended. I did for my first one. This one I'm doing it a little bit quick, but you can take your time and blend it. All right, so technically we have everything colored in. The only thing that I do next is I use the gel pen. And it just depends on what your preferences are for the gel pen. And let me come on this side so I'm not blocking the light too much. I kind of like, again, think of where the light would be from the moon. And then I dot, because Peony is small, I don't really color it in. I just dot her. I give her little gold dots, and you can see that. And I go to the other wing and do the same thing. And then I also, what I did on my original is I added some dots to the skirt just to give it some interest. And the other thing I did, which is what I couldn't do before, is I also added it to the very top, very lightly, of the shading that we did for the hill. It looks really pretty and for real. You can kind of see it in the video, how that looks. Gives it a little sparkle and magic. Then the other thing that's kind of fun to do, you don't have to do this, but it ties in all of this together, is every single solid note that's on here, I put a little gold dot in the center. And that little bit, surprisingly, gives the tree a magical look, on top of it already being magical. And so that's all I do, which is kind of fun. You don't need to watch me do that, but that's what I do, is I just add that little bit of sparkle to all of those notes. So that was a little bit quicker tutorial for you today. I hope you enjoy that. All I'm going to do is mount that or put that on a black card base, and I will be done. So again, I'll have the information in the description below of what I used, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks so much.